Hello, it's Nicole Coustier with Aurelian Coaching. I'm so glad you guys are joining me for this latest webinar. So today, we're talking about keeping harmful thoughts at bay. Now, when I talk about harmful thoughts, what I mean is if a thought is not helping you, it's hurting you, okay? So harmful may not mean this sort of extreme thing. I mean, we have thoughts all the time. And if you are not seeing the results in your life that you want to see, chances are there's something else going on there. And you might be harboring thoughts about yourself or about your situation that are not helping, and in fact, hindering you from getting the results that you want to see. So I want to keep harmful results away and help you cultivate the type of thoughts that are really going to help you in reaching your goals. Now, the way to do that is that I need to teach you a little bit about how the brain works and how the brain processes information. Because if you understand that, then you know how to kind of break that pattern and recondition yourself in a different way. So that's what today's webinar is about. This all came up because of one of my favorite clients, and her name is kind of unusual. So I will call her Betty. I don't know why I picked Betty. Okay, Betty. And she's very, very accomplished. So, when she first came to me, she'd had, I don't know, about 15 years in the finance sector. She was a project manager, extremely accomplished lady. I mean, just really impressive. But she wanted to do something new. So we were working on her positioning, and I didn't do anything more complicated than talk to her about her experiences and read her resume. And I said, okay, well, based on what you want to do, you should position yourself this way. And she had the really interesting reaction. Her reaction was, oh, I can't say that about myself. And I thought, why not? Why not? Did I read it wrong? I didn't read anything wrong. There was somebody that was extremely accomplished, very confident. Yeah, she was confident, talented, extremely smart. And when I suggested a way for her to position herself that she just wasn't used to, her reaction was, I can't say that about myself. That's too much. It's too much. Like, it is not too much. You're fine, right? But it's so fascinating to me that really accomplished people, whatever it might be, however long you've been in an industry, whatever the work that you've been doing, there's a wall somewhere. There's some sort of threshold where all of my achievers kind of hit that brick wall and go, oh, now I got to step back. And I'm super curious about that. Why that threshold? Why that wall for that individual? Super interesting, right? Okay. So I want to tell you about the brain, and so you can see for yourself what's happening, where those random arbitrary parameters are that you've drawn for yourself, right? Why do those exist, and why are they what they are? And see if we can surface for you what you may want to put a question mark on, what you might want to unpack and reconsider. And, how do you want to condition yourself to think differently about those limitations? So the first thing that I want to tell you is, and you guys have probably heard this before, is that the brain's a data center, right? It's just you taking in information, And, you know, some people say, oh, children, they're just sponges, right? Yeah, no, it doesn't stop when you get out of childhood. Like all of us have brains that are just sponges. We take in everything. The brain does not miss anything. Okay? So that's number one. We take it all in. Number two is that the brain, in its data center function, will organize information. It'll organize and collate things, right? So new data point, oh, that looks familiar. I'll, store this over here. Or this one, I haven't seen a lot of that, but kind of similar to this, I'm going to file it over there. So your brain is constantly doing this. Now, the thing about this is that it's totally unconscious, right? We can access it if we do the work to kind of figure out how is my brain organizing incoming information. But for the most part, that is happening without us even realizing it's happening. Now, where it comes to a head is number three, which is your brain, all the data that's coming in and all the data that it's organizing attributes meaning to things, right? Your brain makes something mean something, right? So an experience, a circumstance, what somebody said, a success, a failure, whatever. Your brain is saying that's a success, that's a failure. It's attributing meaning to a thing, to the data that it's getting in. Now, this is really interesting because, we all have a brain. The brain comes with these sort of default factory settings, right? From just thousands of years of conditioning, right? Caveman stuff, where, if we stepped out, the saber-toothed tiger might kill us or our kids, and we might be eaten by this thing, or we might be eaten by that thing, or trampled by the other. Okay. Thousands of years of that have conditioned our brain to interpret things as, it's all about threat perception, right? So fight or flight, all of that stuff. That is like default. That's default factory settings for our brain data center. Something comes in, is it a threat? Yes or no? Okay. The problem with this, well, first of all, the really good thing about this is that it allowed us to survive as a human race, right? We were crazy successful because this part of our brain, the threat perception, was so good. And we still need that, right? If we step out into the street and there's a car coming, you still want that threat perception, the fight or flight, to be engaged so you get out of the way, right? So it's useful. We need that. The only problem is that other parts of our brain have evolved and our lives are very different now. And the default factory settings for our brain data center may perceive things as a threat that aren't really a threat, right? Wherever there's fear or discomfort, for thousands of years, fear meant you might be eaten or trampled or killed. Living in the caveman days, right? So now when we experience fear or discomfort, sometimes our default brain reaction is get out of there. Get out of there. This is bad. Get out. Yeah. Except it might not really be. I mean, if you're experiencing fear and discomfort in a conference call, right? Or an interaction with another person where there's conflict, right? Your brain might be sending out these signals that it doesn't really need to be that serious, right? It's not a life or death situation, but that is how our brains have just been conditioned for so long. So I just want everybody to recognize that fear and discomfort and a lot of negative emotion triggers a fight or flight response in our brain that we can actually choose to embrace or say, you know what, that's not really, I'm not going to die here and decide to do something else. Okay. So that's what this whole lesson is about, this whole webinar. So, so if there is a step where our brain is actually interpreting the information, that is the point of intervention for us, right? We can recognize that the brain is having all these negative thoughts, right? If you do that thing, you're going to fail. If you do that thing, people are going to think you're crazy, right? If you do that thing, people will fill in the blank, right? Whatever it is, right? You might lose your job. You might, people might think less of you, right? Whatever it might be. Okay. Whenever that happens, you have an opportunity to intervene and engage. You know, you don't have to do the default factory settings. You can do your customized settings. Okay. All right. So what does it mean to have customized settings? What, you know, how do you keep those harmful thoughts, those harmful interpretations at bay? How do you keep them away from you so that you can continue on the path to getting the results that you want in your life? Okay, number one, recognize that you can't stop the thought. Okay, this is a big one because so many people do affirmations, for example, right? I'm going to conquer the world. I'm going to, you know, I'm awesome. I'm going to do this thing. And hey, if that works for you, great, great. Okay. What I have found working with my clients and my achievers is that that works up to a certain point, right? Up until you reach that threshold, that sort of invisible line of what people believe they're capable of. They come right up against that line, right up against that wall, and suddenly the affirmations don't work anymore. Okay? Why is that? I think it's because affirmations, traditionally the way they're taught, is you're forcing a positive thought down your own throat, okay? And you're just hammering yourself until you believe a thing. It doesn't quite work that way. What I encourage people to do is if you have a negative thought, okay, recognize that there are two steps here. The thought will just enter your head. I have never seen anybody who can prevent a negative thought from entering their head. I've never seen it happen. But there are people who are very good at recognizing that it's a negative thought and then choosing not to believe it. See, that is a totally different step that you can do. And that's a little bit different than affirmations, which say, I'm never going to think negatively and I'm only going to think positively. With me and all my clients, if there's a negative thought, I can't do this, right? That's a negative thought. That's not going to get you toward meeting your goals and getting the results that you want in your life, right? I can't. That's not going to help you. So instead of never, expecting yourself to never have the thought, I can't, recognize, look at that negative thought. Do I want to believe that I can't? You can choose to believe the thought or not. You don't have to believe every thought that enters your head. Okay. You're going to have lots of thoughts entering your head. You can critically evaluate them and decide that really doesn't serve me. I need to, find something else, find another thought that will serve me and practice that thought. But to just say, I'm never, ever going to have a negative thought, or I'm going to work toward, that is my goal, to never have a negative thought about myself or my situation. Yeah. Good luck with that. Good luck. That may work until you hit that whatever subjective wall you've set up around yourself unconsciously about where your perceived limitations are. That's when the rubber is going to hit the road, and you're going to say, well, now my positive affirmations don't work. And just recognize that there's a two-step process here. You can recognize the negative thought, the harmful thought, the thought that doesn't serve you, whatever language you want to use, and just say, okay, I had a negative thought. Do I want to believe that? Do I want to see where that thought leads me, or do I want to see where a different thought leads me? Right? Okay. So this is that, the third part of how the brain works, where you can do the intervention, right? The brain is collecting data, then it's organizing data, then it's interpreting data. It's the interpretation that really gets us to generating an emotion that gets us to act a certain way. And if our thoughts are limiting thoughts, or things that we just, where they're full of fear or anxiety, or, lack of confidence and capability, or any of those things, it's going to cause us to feel less, right? Even super crazy accomplished people experience this. Now, their threshold, it might be way higher than other people's, but that threshold is there somewhere, right? At some point, when very accomplished people feel like, now I'm really frustrated because I'm not getting the results that I've been getting for 15, 20 years. What is happening? Or if, like my client Betty, they want to change, they want to shift, right? And so they have to think about themselves differently, right? We are living in a COVID era, okay? There are people working from home at a level of remote working that they haven't had before. They've got kids at home, all the things. And there are all kinds of walls that are being hit, right? These are things that people are really experiencing: confusion, frustration. Like, what is happening? I'm a smart person. I figured out lots of complicated things before, and now it's hard. And I just want to offer that your brain is interpreting this as hard. Your brain is interpreting this as hard. So that is a thought that you can either embrace, right? Working remotely with kids in the COVID era, it's hard. Is that going to get you where you want to be? Or, instead of not thinking that ever, because who can do that? I don't know. I can't do that. Instead of not thinking that, considering whether or not you want to believe something else about your situation, right? It's different. It's certainly different. That thought is less harmful, right? If you, I have a couple of clients who, I take a tough love approach sometimes, where it's like, you know what, if if you look around you and you see that everything is so freaking hard, it might be because you keep thinking it's so freaking hard. Okay. Yeah, there's an element of that here. Now, I'm not saying that it's so easy to, do 180 degrees in the opposite direction and go, life is fantastic. I love it. I can totally do this. That's crazy, right? But there's probably something in the middle. There's something that is not, this is too hard. I can't do this. I can't figure it out. I don't have the time. Whew. All of those thoughts that are entering your brain, all of those brain interpretations of the data, they are really not helping you, right? They're just not helping. So what else? What else do you have at your disposal? Okay. Recognize that your brain is taking in data and organizing it. And you might not have total visibility to that until you surface and do the work to surface how your brain is organizing data by default, right? But, there may be things about your work situations where you've been conditioned, right? Your brain keeps interpreting things in a certain way. When you surface that and recognize what's going on, you have a choice. At that point, you can say, this is why I keep thinking this. Do I want to think something else? Do I want to think something else? And it is not more complicated than just recognizing your brain's default settings, right? The default harmful thoughts that you might be having, the unserving thoughts. Just recognizing that that's the case, and then just saying, what other thought could I have that might be a little bit more helpful, right? And it could be anything. It could be anything else. And it's going to be different for different people, right? There are some people who are going to say, instead of thinking this is too hard, they may choose to practice the thought, it's different. I've used that before, right? It's different. That feels a little bit more manageable. It feels better than it's too hard. Some other people might choose to say, it is hard. So I will accept that thought and I can figure it out, right? That also feels different, right? It's too hard versus, yep, it's hard and I'll figure it out. Figure it out somehow, okay? So there are lots of different ways to flip the switch on the default factory settings and kind of customize your own settings, your brain's interpretations of all the data that's coming in. Okay, so hopefully that is helpful. If you want to do some brainstorming around this, especially how you may apply these exact concepts to your own work, your own life, let's talk. So I give a free coaching session. So you can go to aureliancoaching.com or you can go to workingwidow.com. Either would be fine. And there are buttons all over the place for setting up a free coaching session with me. And during these free coaching sessions, I could do like a Q&A if you want to interview me or ask me about my coaching style or how does it work or all this kind of stuff. Or, and this is what I prefer, you bring a problem to the table. You bring a problem, you bring a challenge, you say, I saw your webinar and I have no idea what to do with this information. It sounds good, but I can't figure it out. Let's just have an actual coaching session, okay? I want you to get results in those first 30 minutes. And it is possible. It is possible to do that. So aureliancoaching.com or workingwidow.com. I would love to talk to you and help you brainstorm and apply this information in your own life. So remember, number one, recognize how your brain is interpreting your situation by default. And then number two, if those default interpretations aren't working for you and aren't serving you and aren't getting you to the results that you want, I want you to surface some alternate thoughts that you can believe and embrace and practice in order to get off those harmful thoughts, because you can't prevent them from entering your head, but you can recondition yourself. Okay? So I hope that was helpful. Everybody have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you next time. Take care. Bye.